Hello, everyone. This is Coach Matt for the Seattle Chess School, and today we will do some commentary on the games of Timberlake2025, a student here at the Seattle Chess School, and for brevity, we will refer to him as Timby, and we will watch Timby play some rapid chess. He has a specialty time control, 5+8. Okay, so first person up is a 2097 player, Funarog, and it looks like it's a Banco Gambit with E3. Timby has some experience with this particular line, and we'll see his work here. So we'll back it up to the Banco Gambit. So C5 against the Queen's Gambit, D5, B5 sacrifices a pawn, leading to the Banco Gambit. C takes B, A6, E3. Okay, so with numerous ways to play here, Timby goes for the normal Banco setup here with Bishop G7, D6. He knows very well that black in this line should only take after the light square bishop moves. So this way the light square bishop does not end up on B5 in one turn, but in two. So for example, if Funarog here plays bishop to E2 and then black takes, the bishop will take 2 steps to get to B5. Okay, so here we have the exchange of bishops in a slightly different way. In this version with it, white can still castle, which is very dissimilar to the Banco Gambit accepted, where oftentimes black gets to play bishop takes F1 and white will be forced to hand castle. Okay, so this is typical Banco play. This is one of Timby's specialties, the Banco Gambit. Very solid pawn structure, very easy play. A lot of times black will attack on the queen's side, queen B6, rook B8, etc. Since this knight is on A6, perhaps this guy can be recycled somehow. Knight C7 to B5 and exchange off, like queen B6, some sort of plan like queen B6, knight C7, knight to B5. Here, Timby plays one of his favorite maneuvers, which is knight G4 to E5. And this, of course, is leading to more exchanges. The Banco Gambit is one of the strangest gambits there is in chess, where oftentimes the strategy is actually to trade down into an endgame. For some reason, Banco endgames are very favorable for black, I guess just due to the solidity of the pawn structure in many cases. The activity of black's pieces is also pretty good, even when traded somehow. It's a very strange thing here. So E6 is trying very hard to get rid of white's wedge in the middle of the board. Also, this allows for a queen to enter the position. Queen H4 looks really interesting here. Knight C7 looks interesting. So Timby here is a fairly solid player. I guess we could call him Captain Defense. He likes defendable positions. He likes defending against attacks. He likes diffusing attacks. He loves endgames. Trades are right up his alley. If he could trade down into an endgame every single time, he would be extremely happy with this. He does have Queen H4, which is an active move. However, this move is actually quite nice, putting pressure on the D file. So does this force him to close the center with E5? Does it force him to swap once and try to put, something like E takes D, knight takes D5, knight E6, trying to activate the knight? Both sides will have corresponding outposts. White would have one on D5, black would have one on D4. That would be quite nice. Yeah, typical Timby move. Instead of doing anything active, everything is defense first. And for those of you that don't think that defense first actually works, I mean, you could check out Timby's rating. It is 21-28. You can win games just playing purely defensively. I think it was Wilhelm Steinitz that once said that something to the effect that if you don't attack when you have one, then you lose the right to attack. This type of thing does not bother Timby. He doesn't mind losing the right to attack just as long as he can get a defensible position. All right, so he finally does e5, but now white was given time to bring the bishop over to help defend the king. So if he was going to play e5, it seems like that maybe one move earlier and probably trying to go for some sort of pressure on where white is weak. We will see in these games of Timby that going after weaknesses is not really his desire. This is not something that he especially plays for in games, but mostly just keeping things defended and taking away the possibilities from the opponent. Very much in the style of Tigran Petrosian, minus the exchange sacrifices that Petrosian was known for. So, okay, so now we have something very King's Indian-y. This F5, F4 gains some space with on the dark squares type of thing at the cost of having a bad dark square bishop. The one thing about this particular King's Indian, however, is that black has already sacrificed a pawn to achieve this position. So hopefully there will be some sort of assault on the king's side. The way that he's got the pieces set up, though, it's going to be very hard to get this rook into the game unless black does something like g5, rook f6, rook h6. Okay, so finding a target on the queen's side. White does have a passed pawn over there, though. That's kind of an interesting move. It would seem like keeping the rook on the A file would have been preferable and use the D rook, since the D rook is actually performing no special function. So rook on white's 22nd move, rook D B1 looked kind of interesting there. Okay, so after gaining all this space on the king's side, he now turns attention to the queen's side. Pretty standard fare for him. I guess these weaknesses over here and here can easily be defended by a king, so he doesn't bother to attack over there. Oh, look at that. He actually tricked him. So now queen takes h3 is on if he wants a free pawn. Although b6 is a thing, but this is a free pawn. Does bother the king too. Banco Gambits with equal oh wow. Okay, so you guys get to see what I'm talking about here. Pure defense here. Knight's in the corner, the opponent's a mourner, so they say. I don't know. Yeah, see, and white got one chance to defend this pawn. But yeah, we'll see this quite a bit today. We're going to see pure defense, pure prophylaxis, pure concentration on the opponent's possibilities, which actually is an excellent way to play. It is always a good idea to pay attention to what your opponent can do and try to, make some efforts to stop what they can do, but there is a limit to it. And also, chess is not just purely defense. There is some offense to chess, and you have to take your offensive chances when you had it. So for example, like being able to take a free pawn and, have something near an exposed king. I mean, chess players ought to play for stuff like that. I mean, that's kind of, the point to playing this game, is to get some sort of initiative on the king. So here he has a good knight, and the rooks are well placed, and the queen is okay. He's still, now he has a bad bishop here, so he probably is maybe, hopefully dreaming of something like bishop f6, bishop d8, bishop b6, improving the quality of the bishop, maybe even bishop a5, something like that. I suppose he also has the option of going bishop here, if necessary. Knight e2. Okay, so where's that knight going? What, c1, b5, a5, c6? Maybe. Maybe. So is this a free pawn? Is taking the bat. I mean, white's bishop isn't all that great, but if we take our good knight and exchange this is a pawn too. And that's the pass pawn. Okay, so maybe something a little more tactical. Of course, now going for the queen f2 cheap shot here. Sacrificing a piece. What is this? Even queen takes f2 is an in-between move at any one of those cases. Now bishop e5 is a nasty pin. That was a very strange sacrifice. Oh, Timby missed bishop e5. A very tactical move. Yeah, Timby isn't overly fond of tactics. Very much like Nimzovich, chess without tactics. Now that's actually that might be a little insulting to Mr. Nimzovich there. I mean, he was a strong grandmaster, but very, very similar style, trying to blockade, trying to take away opportunities. And again, a very Timby-ish move, trading queens. This allows the knight in. So he's piece up. Bishop e5 is well, but now that there's pawn f4, so yeah, this might be compensation here for white. I suspect that black is still winning here. And when we're talking about somebody that can defend such a position, this is Timby's specialty here. Almost as if he loves to be at the disadvantage just to prove that he can defend what is happening to him. Almost like a personal challenge. So piece up, clear target on b5. Using the a file finally. So yeah, like was mentioned before, having the rook come to d on b1 and the rook on a1 might eventually achieve such a formation. So knowing Timby, rook b7 is going to be played here. Just preventing rook to a7, another prophylactic move. Well, maybe. Well, he got his wish. All right, so is this blockade enough? Rook b6 is a double hit, and on b7, knight a5 is a double hit. And then it's just a piece up endgame. So, see, oh wow, and rook takes b6 forces the rooks off. Exactly what Timby wants. So you see, kids at home, you can win games by actually doing good defense. You don't have to be a tactical wizard. You don't have to be an attacking genius. You just need to be able to play good moves and defend against whatever your opponent can throw at you at any one time. And you too can, play at a 21, 28 level at least. This isn't what they write chess books about, though. Most chess books are about brilliant victories with, queens sacrifices and checkmates and tactics galore. But it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. Okay, so very, very technical endgame here. Piece for a pawn. If black can win one more of these pawns here, this ought to be an easy victory. Which pawn he wins, though, might be the difficult part. So knight d7, another typical Tim B move, probably angling for knight c5, encouraging a trade, something like this. Also, the knight didn't really have any good circuit elsewhere, so this is probably a good retreating move. So king e7 probably. Or knight f8. Yeah, even more his style. Why exchange knights and acquire a passed pawn when you can exchange knights and get no further bonus? Although the knight on, maybe the pawn on c5 is hard to hold, something like that. Also, that gives white two passed pawns. So this is probably a more solid move. This just looks totally insane. Capture. He's thinking about it. So is there something especially wrong with pawn takes pawn? Be interesting to see the punishment to pawn takes pawn. Let's see if there is one. No, pawn takes knight is check. Oh, he's going to a king and pawn in game. Okay, so yeah. So the master of dissolving, liquidating, the master of liquidating. That's what he's doing here. So this is check, and then white can pick up their piece again, but be pawn down in an end game. And so here's the simplest of all positions. Black has got a pass pawn. Black has also got some squares to work with that white won't be able to guard much longer, specifically f5. Once that happens, it's a very easy win. You could just use the pawn as bait. When the king goes to capture the bait, we just simply capture the f pawn, walk over here, capture the h pawn, and resigns. So king e6, perfectly professional move. Next move is king f5. You can almost pre-move it, unless white plays h4. King f5, and you follow it by go pawn go. And this should be the, yep, and this is simple. Yep, the moves are starting to come extra fast now. He knows what he's doing. Go pawn go. Except now he thinks. He plays go king go. So this means he actually gets to keep the pawn and win the f pawn. So extremely professional. This ought to force resigns. Okay. So good first technique. All right. So look at this, same rating. Big fat lazy cat. Exactly same rating, 2097. So Timby against e4 is a 4-knight Sicilian, Sicilianista. And here we see black going for a typical type of setup that is known in the English opening, which is something like a lesser triangle. So instead of pawns on e5 and d6, we have pawns on e6 and d5. But the piece setup is very similar to the triangle. White has done some very strange knight f1 type of stuff here. And his pieces, I mean, like the natural development of this knight has been clogged. So this is either just simply making up an opening, or this is something that Big Fat Lazy Cat prepared, which is always interesting just to see what, how people set up their pieces. In fact, let's go back to the beginning here really quickly. So it was d3 and bishop e2. Very unusual. Knight d2, c3, knight f1. So something like the Elshad system, just with slightly different piece placement. And okay, and then Timby won this pawn on f4 and castled long. Okay, so something aggressive. Okay, so extra pawn, good development, good chances. White is discombobulated, not developed, not castled. Yeah, bishop to a6 might have been interesting there, targeting the pawn. So this completes development, sets up, oh, I don't know, f4, fe, knight e5. Knight e5 looks strong. Lots of options here. Knight e5. Okay, so he's actually going for some sort of an attack. And so there's a very serious threat of something takes d3, since there's a double attack there. So what, knight c1, double defense, but okay, so something aggressive. So we would expect something careful here from Timby. There might be a tactic of knight takes f3, queen takes f3, pawn takes, followed by g5 or e5, winning the knight. But like I said, this is not really Timby's style, but maybe he can find this. This does look actually quite simple. Just simply pawn takes, pin. Wow, he did. He found it. Now, is he going to find the pin move? Of course, the rooks are looking at each other, but he could take back with the queen and keep this pin. Well, I guess white does have a knight takes e6 resource, or knight to e6, especially if you play pawn e5. Ah, he takes first. Ah, wow, tactically sharp from. Well, very good, Timby, very good. And then e5. Wow, that was really nice. G5. Okay, so this actually it gives white a pawn for their trouble. Oh, unless he's got the move queen d. Oh, further trickery. Further trickery. So winning a piece, losing e6, but you can just simply move away. And white's king looks abysmal here. So Timby, wow, surprising me at the very least. Pulling out some tactics here. So take e4 looks really strong. No, that doesn't look strong because the queen takes e6. Okay, so then queen takes e6, get the king out of here, and then we can put some pressure on the e pawn. So Timby did that right. Good. Oh, he wants the queens off. Okay, so now he's back to his old style of endgame. So once again, we get a technical endgame up a piece. Not the oh, that loses the entire rook. Oh, and then he tapped. Wow. Wow. All right. Wow. Okay. So strong use of tactics there to get that win. Quite beautiful. All right. Well, black again. Let's give him a chance to play the white pieces. So 21-32. Vahagen Aduns. Don't know what that means. Where are you from? You're from nowhere. Okay, so that's cool. All right, so yeah. This kind of anti-Benoni type setup here. There's a bunch of different moves. I'm a fan of E5, but okay, so we go into four knights territory, and now we are into some sort of English. Okay, so this is not kind of a position that Timby has had too many times. So let's see if he can come up with some decent plan. Possibly e6 followed by developing the dark bishop was safer. Here it looks like white can try to utilize this diagonal, but does not. So now e6. So kind of London-y. Timby has some experience with playing the London with the white pieces. So the setups here and the different play. Yeah, I mean Bishop D6 is more aggressive. Bishop B4 was more aggressive, but this is a developing move. I suppose one of the points to playing these kind of solid moves is that all of the aggressive moves are still available later. We just don't do it right away. So I guess that's one thing that could be said for fairly solid development. So what? Rook B8 maybe, Queen C7 maybe, Knight D7 very Timby-ish, maybe going for here. With some sort of trade fest in mind. I'd say this position is roughly equal. This is exactly how Timby likes it. Just calm and sedate. Not a lot of tactics for the opponent. If that's what's going on, then Timby is very happy. You can't just suddenly attack or target or even sacrifice and try to make the game, mildly spicy. Timby will be right there to close that down. And that's what he sees. Knowing him, I mean, he sees that this bishop is quite good on this diagonal, so he's immediately going to put the bishop on f6. And the first chance he gets to exchange off, that's exactly what he's going to do. Wow, this set Mr. Adon's thinking here. Knight d7, very scientific move. Okay, so just a move. Let's just create air and see what you're up to. Good waiting move. Just and of course, bishop f6. This is not too terribly hard to understand. So maybe neat. Okay, and here you go. Watch. Let's see how fast he does this. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it took about 10 seconds to make that move. I figured it would have been like borderline instantaneous. Wow, so something aggressive from him. Any other player, I would say that this would be the prelude to Queen G6 and Bishop takes, or knight E5 and dive in somehow. But with Timby, this might be the prelude to something even more solid. We shall see how he handles this one. So what? Knight A4, Queen C1, Queen D2. I'll guess Knight A4. It's not the most centralized knight, but it is a temporary outpost. Not a good one, but I mean, at least he won't be bothered out there. Yeah, this is also logical. I mean, this looks at some squares that black isn't defending, connects the rooks. Just a good solid move. All right. So let's see what he does with Queen F6, Knight C5. So heading onwards to E4 is one idea. Another idea is possibly to put a rook on D8 and try farming on C4. Try to take advantage of the fact that the queen is here. Also, this move does stop Knight A4 for later, just in case we can build up. So maybe, just maybe, there's an A5, A4 attack in the works. Maybe there's also coupled with rook to D8, we could play pawn to E5 and knight E6 and try to centralize the knight more firmly. So we have some ideas here. And a big giant lead on the clock as well. So, but this is 8 seconds per move. So I wouldn't suspect that anybody will ever get in a serious time pressure here. Just make fast moves and gain more time. But on the other hand, you have to make fast, good moves. You can't just make fast moves. Fast and good. That's the only thing. Those are the only kind of moves that matter in blitz. Well, setting him thinking. Probably wants to play F3, but it's not the first thing that he wants to do. Rook FD1. All right, so you get 94 for free if you wish. That might be a decent wish. Yeah, I mean, actually, that might not have been a good move. Now knight C3 is a thing. Again, we have that queen. Yeah, now this, knowing Timby's, he's going to trade, but that probably is not ideal. But then if it's not ideal, what is? Pawn E5 and just resume the initiative? Actually, pawn E5 resumes the initiative. What's wrong with pawn E5? Where's the queen going to go? To here? That allows knight takes F2 and black wins. So E5 wins here. Yeah, queen D4 is oh, but Timby can't resist. He can't resist. He'll trade queens with anybody at any time, even if he has a good tactic involved with his queen, or by saving his queen, by saving his queen from trades. He will trade it anyway. And this is the thing that keeps him at the 2141 level. Now, many players might say, well, 2141, that's really good. True. But if you use if you knew that you could use tactics in your game and get yourself to 2541, I mean, that's a big difference. It also adds something to the game when one utilizes the tactics that you have. Still, I would say this position is, Timby's bread and butter. He loves solid positions. He loves diffusing the opponent's initiative. And I think he has basically done that. So for what he wants out of chess, he's getting what he's getting what he wants. So he eventually agrees on knight A4. So, yeah, although this c-pawn is going to require defense now. And white has been gifted the threat of pawn to F3, winning the C5 pawn. So probably he's planning rook A C8 on the next move, no matter what white does here. Rook A C8, that would be my guess. He does not double defend. Yeah, that not only allows pawn F3, it also allows bishop to F3, and suddenly white has tactics. So white takes once. So now there's no more weakness on C5. That might not have been a good idea by white. Now that knight on A4 is attacking nothing, whereas one move ago it was attacking a very weak pawn. Now this pawn becomes a passer. Okay, so he does find bishop F3, but one move too late. So again, we would expect rook A C8 to get out of the pin and to prevent knight C5 and so at some future date. So of course, so this is what he does. Well, this forces the response, unless knight G5 is some sort of tactical move. We would not expect the tactical move from Timby. we would expect bishop g6 and just lie in wait and keep everything defensive. But in fact, wow, look at this. So once again, he proves me wrong. He's willing to dive into the tactics. Oh, look at this. So white finds a nice little tactic. So this forces rook c7. Only move. All right, so now we got a desperado situation. So they have to absorb the bishop. That's forced. Unless it isn't forced. Okay. And then take, and then you probably got both choices. Both pawn and knight look interesting for various reasons. Knowing Timby, I would guess he'll take with the knight. Once again, I'm wrong. Taking with the knight would have also blocked knight c5, which I would have thought it would have been his first fear. But this now this joins up the pawns so that the d pawn is no longer isolated. So the e pawn can help out. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he played e5 here. Yeah, good move. On knight c5, black can always play rook f7 and turn his attention to the king. e4 is a threat. Maybe not yet. Oh, well, wait a minute. Oh, so very nice. So the trick is rook takes pawn, knight f3 check. Very nice. So he's got to play rook g3. Yes. And then how do you proceed here? Oh, attacking master. Like this, okay. To me, this only is optically good. I don't know if it's actually good. So like, how do you combine? How do you make more threats here? Can't promote, can't target anything. White's now got a protected passer on the C file, so got to pay attention to that. Rook here. So this threatens nothing. Mm-hmm. Threatening knight c5. Wow, White's making progress here. Ooh, very aggressive move. And then what, g5 too? Maybe g5. g5, rook f5, knight h4 wins the rook. So g5, rook f6, king g7. Threatening g5. I wonder if he unleashes. No, okay, so now he gave him time to hit the e pawn twice. Uh-oh. Yeah, so if you're going to do this, you had to play g5 first. This is this was a Zwischenzug, but sometimes executing your threat is better than setting up a threat. I know that the old saying is that the threat is stronger than the execution. I'm more inclined to say that the execution, sometimes is more than good enough. So here, White actually wins a pawn. Yeah, rook d6 was just too careful. He didn't have to be that careful. And he's about to lose something. And the knight on f3 is actually in black's way. So what, rook g6 check? Is that the only move? Nah, h4. Just a simple distraction. Simple remove the guard. Yeah. And black is going to be a pawn down in this endgame. which again is Timberlake's strength. He doesn't he doesn't mind defending bad end games. Yep, good move. So how do you get out of this conundrum? Nah, this rook DE1. Oh, he didn't have to do that. Yeah, rook DE1 was like resigns almost. But again, this is something that Timby won't mind defending this 2 pawns down. We'll set up some barriers. So there we go. Check them. And everything's defended except for H5. So what, rook G4? Yeah, simple. Oh man. Wonder, did black actually have a tactic in that game? This is starting to fall apart. Let's go back to better times here for a second. Let's see. So yeah, E5 here. Yeah, this he did not have to commit the E pawn at all. He could have done something else entirely, unless F4 was a big thing. So maybe he needs to put the rook on the F file and stop F4 and save E4 for another time. Something like that. Wonder if he had anything before this. So we had the tactic situation here, 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 take. He also could have taken this with the knight and just suffered through the isolated pawn, but had better chances to improve the rest of his pieces. But yeah, once this check got thrown in, the knight was actually in the way. Yeah, and here, this was his last chance. He had to play G5 here. Rook F5 loses to knight H4, so he'd have to go to F6. Then you could just play King F6 and kick him away somewhere, and then resume a kingside attack. But kingside attacks is not Timby's way. He's not really into that as much as everyone else is. Okay. And then he ends up resigning. Yeah, that rook endgame was losing there. All right. Well, all right. Let's get back to work. Wow. I mean, are we ever going to get the white pieces here? I mean, this isn't fair. So 8-2. So this is a slightly different time control. Knight F3. So an anti-Banco measure. And whenever Timby does not get the Banco, he goes for King's Indian. So that's a really excellent opening repertoire there. Knight BD7, C6. Okay, so Queen A5 is a move. Yeah, no, but solidness and defensiveness is the order of the day. Actually, both Queen B6 and Queen A5 are a little bit more space gaining. This particular setup is popular amongst the Seattle chess schoolers. There's at least 3 players that play like this on a fairly regular basis. It does guard every square pretty much on the on this side of the board back. there are no weaknesses, so white has nothing to really grab onto. On the other hand, black doesn't have any active prospects here either. But when one is defensively inclined, active prospects is almost like a bad word. I don't want active prospects. I want something I can defend. Many players like Timby play this particular style because they don't particularly like getting miniaturized, losing a game in under 25 moves. Somehow this type of loss is considered extremely shameful and embarrassing. And so they would much rather, players like this would much rather lose a game in 95 moves than get blown off the board in 25 or, or less. On the other hand, trying to play for the miniature, I mean, that's the other thing is if you don't play, if you play in too solid of a style, then no miniatures will go your way. I mean, you might still win a game, but every game is going to be long and drawn out. There will be no, Morphe-like wins where you win a game in 17 moves or something when you play like this. Unless your opponent just blunders their queen somehow. Something like this. So, okay. So we have a system here where white went for an exchange of dark square bishops. And now black has got a fianchettoed knight, which actually might not be so bad. Going here, or even here. So that takes this one away. Does not take knight e6 away, though. I don't know if that move could have been taken away. So I go for some plan of trying to dominate the d4 square. Something like this. So once again, we have like rough equality. Black still has to develop a few pieces. But wherever his play is or his activity is, will have to be explained to me. I don't see what black can do here, except for try to play on in the center and the queen side. H5, so a somewhat King's Indian-ish move. Very aggressive on his part. Very unlike him. So maybe he's branching out. You will have to deal with this. I suppose the threat is capture, and then move this knight to do a discovery and put some serious pressure on him. Okay. Knight c5. So we have an empty e6 square that can be used with almost any piece, either knight or the bishop. Probably the bishop, so that this way a rook can get to the d8 square. That'll probably be necessary to play bishop to e6 here. So bishop to e6 wins a tempo on the pawn and prepares rook to d8. Knowing his defensive tendency, he will find this. He will find it just based purely on the fact that he wants to trade off something on the d file. And he realizes that he can't play rook to d8 straight away. So he's going to do this. So this way that both rooks can go to d8. Although winning tempi is not really his strong suit, nor is it his desire. Most of us love winning tempi. Almost at every, and there we go. He found it. He found it, but purely for exchange reasons. Not necessarily to start some business here on the queen side, anything like this, trying to gain space and try to push him around. This is purely just for this move or this move. Okay, so this wins another tempi if he wants it. So does rook d8. Very Timby-ish move. Very, very defensive. I mean, and I mean, what are the prospects for this knight? Can't go this way. Can't go here. Maybe you can go here. Maybe you could go here and try to recycle yourself. Maybe you could move the rook and recycle yourself to f8 and then on to h7 or something like this. Look at that. That even takes away knight to b6. So, yeah, this is I would say even most grandmasters would recommend to a chess student to not play like this. The constant striving for inactivity, it really doesn't lead anywhere unless your opponent blunders. If you think that your opponent is going to blunder or is eventually going to blunder, then this actually could be a very riskless style where you can actually play defensively like this, wait for your opponent to blunder, and then just win games with, relative ease. I mean, there's usually not going to be, too much difficulty. You just have to play a cramped position for a while and wait for your opponent to blunder. But if you're waiting for that blunder, I mean, it's possible that your opponent will not. And then all these passive moves will come back to haunt, really. Also, I can see white might even be trying for queen d6 here, and just with a full-scale invasion. And that trade of queens, I don't think would be very good for black. c6 is weak. And white will occupy the d file first. So here he takes. Isn't that the old saying in hockey, passivity equals death? I would say the exact same thing about chess. Passivity equals death. Now, not always, but I mean, against the right opponent, just being passive means that you just lost. I think Garry Kasparov is the ultimate example of how chess really ought to be played, which is activity on every move. If you ever watch Garry play chess, he's always doing something. All of his moves are, aggressive, or at least planning some aggression. He doesn't go into defensive huddles or anything like that and just like wait around for the opponent to do something. He's always striving for activity with like practically every move, I think. And since, he's one of the greatest players of all time, I think that style really means something. Look at this. Uh-oh, tactic time. Yeah, now Xenon, how would you even say that? Just maybe silent Z, Denal92. What Denal92 does not realize is that he played in a perfect way against Timby, actually introducing tactics to him, especially since he's been trying so hard to prevent them. And by knight to b5, he utilizes a pin. Oh, but we still have queen d6, so this almost works. But white played it in a perfect anti-Timby style, actually introduced tactics to the position. Give him a nightmare to think about. Yeah, now this queen trade can't even be can't actually happen. Queen takes queen, knight takes queen, and that's a fork. So this means he has to grovel once again. Okay, so that hits e4 at least. Oh, I don't know about that. Black has some disco powers. Take, and now he's got disco powers. So that means all he has to do is move the bishop. We have here. There's this one. Probably here is better. Let's at least try to win an exchange. So Yeah, I went for this one, but there is queen d5 check as an unfortunate resource. So again, not playing the most, playing a tactic, but not playing the most devastating of tactics here. Yeah, see, with the bishop on b3, the bishop on b3 would have guarded that. So here again, he was forced into an unpleasant queen trade, and then that's funny. White actually had knight d6 instead of collecting the bishop, but I suppose this is fine. So he's got a majority over here, a passer here. Black's got a passer over here that we can't completely ignore, but there's already king blocking. Oh, so he found, wow, okay. So actually finds a weakness to hit. That's wonderful. However, it's good to play like this when you have equal material. It's good to, target your opponent rather than go into defensive huddles in many cases. Target them whilst you have a good position. So here, white, of course, has king f3, perhaps. He just says, go pawn, go. Let's see you stop all my pawns. That's what he says. King f3. Good move. So how do you stop it all is the question. So take once, take with pawn. So we got go pawn, go. The rook is already behind. The knight can guard the queening square. If the c rook moves to a8, knight c7 will always fish him out of the corner. Also, you can collect f4, perhaps, and again be a pawn up. Knowing Timby, I would guess he will play knight to e8 here. He will play the most passive move. I know my boy, Tim. Oh, Timby, man, you're getting too predictable, buddy. You make the most defensive move possible. And in fact, maybe even d6 is just immediately decisive. D7 is huge. Maybe just a6. Yeah, go, go, go. Run, pawn, run. Again, he could collect. He could collect this at any time. So White's playing this correctly. Go, pawn, go. Maybe even here anyway. d6, rook takes knight, d7. Followed by d8. That looks crushing. Zdeno. Zdenko. He's a hockey player. Looks like a familiar name. Rook e1. What is this about? This just hangs d5. Unless he's planning rook takes knight. Rook takes d5, rook takes knight, rook takes rook. He is doing this. This feels like that there's a giant hole in it, but maybe not. So rook takes, knight c7, rook d3. Well, yeah, maybe this gives white a winning endgame, but this looks like one that he'll have to work for his meal here. So rook d3, king takes f4. And then something like rook c8 at some point, and then you'll have to sacrifice the rook for the newborn queen, and then it will be pawn for knight. Yeah, that should be winning for white. So at some point he'll have to play rook c8 or so. Well, no, that just allows a queen. There's no perpetual. There's no mate either. It only looks scary. And go to e3 or e2. And resigns. Yeah. That's too bad. Okay, now I'm starting to wonder, does he have the settings so that he's only playing black? It'd be really nice to see a game where he had the white pieces. All right, so wait, another Banco? Yep, another Banco. C5, E5, B5. There it is. A6. Taking right away is cool. Yeah, taking right away was better. Nah, okay, so now white actually has a good advantage here. The correct move order in here is to take. And then when white plays knight takes, we go bishop to a6 there, force the knight to go back to c3, and then play g6. And then we've actually transposed to the Banco Gambit accepted. Timby messed that move order up here. So he was trying. So g6 allowed e4, which is already threatening e5. And then so now white's got a much favorable f3 variation. So white's just going to be up a pawn for a very long time here. No, that's risky. Probably play a takes b. No, white's gearing up for the h4 h5 attack here. This is the big point. Brrr. Followed by this. All right, so this is a type of thing that Timby he likes. He doesn't mind being under attack just as long as he has some sort of reasonable defense or defensive ideas. Okay, so this doesn't threaten anything yet. So h3, wait a minute, why h3? What is the point? The point was h4, not h3. So this could be taken with the bishop. And white should probably take this one. Black might get that octopus on d3. He might be able to, especially if white takes. If white takes and black takes, he might be able to get this move in, and then play c4 and have the octopus here attacking everything like this. One thing about a4 here is that black could seriously consider taking, and if white takes, we could even sack the queen. Pawn takes, and then rook takes, and then, well, but this knight is guarding the other rook, so maybe that isn't so good. All right, so it's the threat is the octopus move. How do you slow that down? He does well. He slows it down by slowing down c4. So even if he does play check, c4 will be a little harder to play. Now this diagonal is starting to get a little more drafty as well. So White's got to pay attention here. Knowing Timby, he's probably going to play here. Something retreaty here. Huh. All right, so I guess he's angling for c4 anyway. Yeah, good move. Almost a mistake. Right here. Kind of like 97 now that you've played Rook. Yeah, look at that. See? I can predict his moves. Okay, so just keeping up the pressure. And he breaks. Okay. So here we'll have the octopi together once this knight gets here, and then we'll have a constant source of fun. And all his pieces are working here. So yeah, he defended against that early aggression really well. Trade of bees, huh? Yeah, maybe just taking. White can't take. And taking here is just met by king takes. So yeah, just a simple pawn takes pawn. How can that be bad? Yeah, and he finds it. Now b2 is a giant thing. You should probably pre-move that. But he got his pawn back and as an overwhelming position. And he did not pre-move this. So he lost 4 seconds. I don't know if that'll be significant, but we'll find out later. A4. All right, so this feels like he's kind of flailing around now. Knight f2 wins an exchange if he wants it. b2 hits, probably wants to keep that guy there though. So knight f2 is just a simple tactic, which he missed. Yeah, knight f2. Actually, knight f2 won a rook. Knight f2 still wins a rook. The point is that when the king moves, they won't be able to join up rook. So knight f2 picked up an entire rook. It wasn't just an exchange. Come on, Timby. Oh, man, he doesn't even see it. So this is a great example in tacticless play. This means that oftentimes checks, captures, and threats are not looked at. A lot of chess coaches will teach the students that checks, captures, and threats are always the first 3 moves you should look at as soon as your clock starts to run. So whatever move you're on, once it is your turn, the first 3 types of moves you always look at are your checks, you look at your captures, you look at your threats that you can make. If you don't have a check, a capture, or a threat, or a good one, then the 4th thing I would suggest looking for is your opponent's threats, especially based on whatever they just did on their last move. Look at their moves to see if they're threatening anything, and then try to play accordingly. But if you miss your checks and captures and threats, you could be missing all kinds of goodies. Now, I'll say that for a Banco position, having the octopi plus a queen plus a passed pawn plus getting your pawn back is extremely good. I mean, this is like a dream Banco here. I mean, for those of you that play the Banco Gambit, I mean, when you go to bed at night, this is the type of position that you dream of playing, getting something like this. So, I mean, from that point of view, there's there's no problem there. But when your opponent gives you a free rook, take the rook. Be fancy later. Be do all that great stuff later, but take the rook first. It makes life a whole lot easier. All right, so probably rook takes. And then black has a choice of pawns. You could take the E pawn or you could take the A pawn. My guess is he's going to take the E pawn. Knight takes E4. This is the idea. And that will break up the pawn phalanx. Knight takes A4 does get rid of white's passer, however. And this is the only passed pawn, but I mean, he's already got a good coverage on here, so there's no reason why not to bust up his center. Knowing Timby, I would expect queen D3, like so. Oh wow. Okay, so reestablishing the octopus, but not only threatening the rook. So the rook can go to B1, of course. Oh, he cannot. Okay, so no, look at that. Look at that. So this wins the knight f2 again. No, not knight f2 again. Don't do that. The knight's now guarding the rook. Okay, so he wins an exchange after all this, and you could still pick up pawns. You could pick up this one. Again, this is a dream Banco ending. A picks up the pass pawn. Now the center pawn remains. However, this is the threat. Okay, so he did this right. So then rook to A1 looks pretty much decisive. This wins another knight. The king cannot escape. Yeah, he finds this pretty easily. So this should force resigns. That's too bad. Mario actually had a pretty nice position there out of the opening. And he tapped. Okay. Yay, finally. And now we get a 2252 player here. So Timby plays all kinds of different stuff with white. He plays the London, he plays the English, he plays the Queen's Gambit. Here we see the King's Indian attack. So King's Indian attack versus a London Slav type of setup. This seems all fairly normal. So what, H6 here? E5. Yeah, bishop D6 is almost encouraging E4. So let's see how this goes. So we bust up the center. Maybe this is already a nice initiative here. Knight C4. So he's going after the bishop pair, or he might be going after E5 in some way. So is it the bishop pair? Bishop H5, G4. Maybe he's going after the E5 pawn here. Ye old triple attack. So the only way he wins E5 is he has to play G4. However, this, of course, makes the king slightly drafty, but maybe this extra pawn really means something. So knight F takes E5 looks really wonderful here. I would agree with this move. So take. And he won the bishop pair plus a pawn. So this is looking very promising. Oh, we note here this is an 8-0 game, so this will be no increments. So running your opponent out of time is a distinct possibility now. And so far, time is roughly equal. Okay, so we would expect c6 here. Yeah. Then what? Queen e2, bishop d2, maybe bishop d2. I would expect that from Timby. Bishop d2, queen e2, maybe even queen e1, something like this. Bishop d2. Ha ha ha. Now queen to e2, followed by rook a e1. No. No, he plays. Oh, okay. So black's trying to get the initiative here. So this wins a second pawn. Queen f3. So at a3. I would guess a3. Defending against any knight before attacks. Oh, well, then there's this. So a Trinquate here, of course, will kind of straighten out white's pawns a little bit. Oh, wow, he gets it. And he had it pre-moved too. So he anticipated that this was going to be the move that was played. So he lost no time and gained even more, a few more seconds out of the deal. So 2 pawns up in an end game. I would still expect a3. Rook f1. Okay, so g4 or bishop g5. g4, okay. And the other rook over to e1. So some normal moves. So bishop e4, a3 still, bishop g5, something a little aggressive. And I would still expect a3. Forcing him to play a3. Mm-hmm. Okay. So he's slowly but surely creeping forward here with his 2 extra pawns and no corresponding counterattack. This is a dream position for Timby, especially against a 2252 player. This is exactly what he wants. Something where the opponent doesn't have any activity at all. No tactics, no anything. So yeah, so my guess is something like bishop e4. He weakens d3, but maybe there's some concrete reason for this. Whoa. All right, reminding him that he has a king side. So the threat is h7, actually, which is funny. Yeah. So he got rid of his doubled h pawns, and he acquired a passed h3 pawn out of the deal. So that's wonderful. Yep, and eventually bishop to e4. So this is threatening bishop to f5 and total liquidation, and just win the endgame simply. So knowing Timby, I wouldn't even be surprised at bishop c1 here. He almost made it. So what, bishop d4? Is this the point? And then park the bishop on f6 and guard b2 at the same time? No, he allows him to play knight c3. Now that's not very Timby-ish. That was extremely uncareful. Yeah, that's why bishop d4 was a good move first, actually blocking this move out. And then if he even attacks the bishop, you could just park on f6 and then you could anchor that with pawn g5, and the pawn on b2 would be guarded forever, and you could build up however you want. Yeah, now we get to see the real strength of Timby's defensive style, is that when he's forced on the defensive, now it doesn't bother him so much. So he'll go ahead and do this. But the thing to remember, Timby, is that when you have the initiative and then suddenly you make some mistake and allow yourself to go on the defensive, that means you did something wrong. So it is important to, when you have the initiative, keep going forward, keep pressing your opponent, keep targeting weaknesses, especially. So now it's an opposite color bishop ending. So I would say Scandici probably has a good chance of holding this one if he can get his king active and not allow another weakness. Well, okay, so he's going for a5. And this is going for c6. Now you have the initiative again, so keep up the pressure. Good move. Although he still is going to play a5. Then what, bishop d2? Bishop g5, trying to get rid of the rooks. So the threat is rook d8, exchanging off at least one rook. Here, white should play bishop f6. That's a more... Well, yeah, okay. No. He should hold on to the pawn. That's true. Or maybe play rook d8, trade rooks first, and then go rook d4. Yeah, see, bishop f6 would have prevented that at some point. Okay, so using our pieces, trying to make a mating net. 2 extra pawns. Things are looking good. H4 is a blunder because of rook g1. So you have to be careful. Trying to get rid of a rook. Probably taking with the bishop. Now he takes with the rook. Check. So maybe his king can get into d6 or c7. Don't go king e5. No, f6. Oh, well, maybe. Maybe. I guess black can't play f6. He's very lucky that he can't do that. Walked into a tactic. But e6 hangs. So maybe black could play bishop takes g4 and then do it. Oh, he didn't find it though. He found this, which threatens f6. So, okay, so getting out of that. Uh-huh. Very good move. So probably bishop d2, and then follow that up with king takes c6, maybe. Bishop d2 looks most accurate. Any other bishop move allows rook to d1 check and then a trade of rooks, which will probably just peter out to a draw. No, that allows another tempo. So unless he plays bishop d2 here, this is the only way that rook d7 makes any sense. Yeah, he found it. He found it. All right, so black probably has to play like rook h1, and again, we'll have an opposite color bishop, but that passed c pawn is going to matter. So at the very least, you can get rid of the passed h pawn, but the passed c pawn is going to be a problem. Okay, and he also has, we're getting down to the last minute here. And so now we'll have dirty flag time. So going after the pawn, so probably h4. h5 is mate. h5 is mate, Scandici. Pay attention. h5 is mate, dude. Oh, look at that. Whoa. Quite nice. Quite nice. Very, very, very Timby-ish win there. Get a nice advantage. Exchange down to the end game. Have some technical details there. Use it to your advantage. Game over. Very nice. Is that going to be it? That isn't going to be it. They're going to do a rematch here. All right. So we'll make this the final. We'll make this the final game here for this particular video. I'll thank Timby in advance for donating his time. And okay, and we'll end it with a symmetrical Tarrasch. I personally like a6 here. I think that's a good move. Oh, no. Oh, very passive. Very passive. Probably even just losing a pawn here. Wow. Yeah, no, back in, well, okay, you could take with the pawn. Well, yeah, this is already looking a bit squiffy here. Back in this position, in this symmetrical position, knight c6, of course, is playable. a6 is quite good in this position because in a lot of cases, you're threatening to capture on c4, bishop takes c4, followed by b5, and followed by bishop to b7 with a perfectly playable Queen's Gambit accepted type of position. Also, since a6 also stops anything from landing on b5. This position, again, this is very Timby-ish, slight disadvantage, but, fairly defensible position. He won't mind groveling here for a long time. Oh, wow, and he got to unisolate his d pawn. That's actually an accomplishment. And now I would say the position is just equal now. Could even trade rooks and play rook c8 or that. Fairly level position. Whoa. Too bad we can't make this knight move. b6. Seems rather loosening. So here I would expect queen d5. Right piece, or right square, wrong piece. Okay, so going for the tradeaholic style. Let's do it. Knight takes bishop. Yep. Could even trade rooks. Trade rooks and then play bishop f6. And now we're getting a very Timby-ish position. Bishop f6 did the same thing. Bishop f6 at least pinned the knight to the queen. So we have like a cross, we'd have a cross pin here. Pin this way, pin this way. Cross pins are extremely strong. This one, of course, allows b4. That looks kind of scary. What? No, he just walked into knight e6 check. Oh, no, and Scandici missed it. I think back here, doesn't he have knight e6 check? And if queen takes, then rook, oh, no, just walked right into a tactic there. And yeah, in fact, Scandici might have actually just walked into a counter tactic with king to e2 instead of execute. Once again, if you don't execute the tactics that you have, it very well may be that you just played a bad move. You know, you can't play chess without tactics forever. You have to actually do something from time to time. And if you don't do it, then your position is worse. So this actually loses the G pawn because of king to f1 and queen takes rook. So he's got to lose his G pawn either with check or without. Okay, but the problem is that he still has knight e6, so he probably still has to trade this first before he can collect his pawn. Although, yeah, king f8, what a really bad move. Wow, so maybe this position isn't quite so good. Maybe. No, knight c6 and resigns. Oh, jeez. Oh, man. The delicate balance between mastery and non-mastery, and resigns. Okay, so we'll end it with that. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Timby, for your time there. This has been Coach Matt for the Seattle Chess School, and we shall see you guys on the next one.